Well, this is it. Are the Nashville Predators going to keep their season alive in Vancouver tonight? We'll preview Game 5 on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I want to start out with a special shout out to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys, and we appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio.
Well,
that
was certainly a game 4, Ann.
It was a game 4.
Yes.
Question
to ask, and we'll get to it in a second, but this has to be the biggest choke job in team history, right?
Oh, it's certainly, if it's not the top, it's got to be like 1B. It's got to be 1B. If it's not 1, it's 1B.
Yeah, kind of want to talk about the debate between this and maybe one other game that could be mentioned as the worst choke job ever. So we'll talk about that today. Also an interesting discussion about who's to blame for what happened at the end of Game 4. And the million-dollar question, can the Nashville Predators recover for tonight's Game 5? Can they keep their season alive? All topics we're going to tackle on today's show. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and as a big fan of Monopoly Go, I love unleashing my competitiveness. The mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, Ann, let's start with a little look back at this previous game, shall we? Obviously, I was driving back from a wedding, so I didn't get to really talk to you about the game. This feels like a bigger choke job than the 2010 Game 5 against the Chicago Blackhawks. Because here's the thing with that series. Blackhawks were the best team, I think, in the NHL, all season. Mm-hmm. Clearly, I think, the front runners for the Cup. Nashville did, surprise them with a couple of games. But that game was clearly Chicago's to lose. Even though the Predators were up in that game, tied in the series, clearly the Blackhawks were, knocking at the door. Preds were kind of bearing down the hatches. Right. Whereas Vancouver, you look at this situation, and the Predators have outplayed the Vancouver Canucks for the majority of the game in all but one game this series. And it's weird because it just so happened to be the one game in the series the Predators won. You have Elias Pettersson, who is, arguably the biggest dynamic playmaker on the Canucks, not having his best series, or at least not as good of a series I think a lot of people thought. You have the Canucks down to their third string goalie, and you had this team on the ropes 3-1. You were dominating that third period. Outshot them what? I think it was 13-2 at some point up until the last 4 minutes of the game. And it was a collapse. It's a collapse. And the thing about, I think, what makes this worse than that 2010 Blackhawks series is that series was so back and forth, and Predators were just kind of holding on for dear life. And the Blackhawks, kind of found a way and, got a little bit lucky there. This feels like Nashville is going to find a way to lose a series that, quite frankly, they should be winning right now.
Yeah. I love one of the words that we got online, and I wish I could remember whose it was, but it was snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And I'm like, if that does not sum up that game 4, I'm not sure what is. And I'm with you. The part I think that is the most confounding is how well Nashville played in that third period until they sure didn't.
Yeah.
And it's those ones where I'm like, okay, and I haven't been able to bring myself to rewatch it yet. Maybe someday. Today is not that day. It's too fresh. But
we can trauma bond after this if we want.
We could emotionally eat our way through it, which, I'm a fan of. But
why not? Yeah.
You watch those last 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and it's like I couldn't tell whether Nashville collapsed so poorly, they did, or whether Vancouver just stepped it up so much, which you saw that they did. And it just led to such an epic letdown because, again, Nashville dominated in that third period, really. And Vancouver just dug deeper and Nashville just choked. I mean, I don't even know what to say. And this was the first time in franchise history that the Nashville Predators have had a 2-goal lead in the third period in a playoff game and lost. First time in franchise history. So, wow, way to make it right. It was excruciating. That was an excruciating loss.
Yeah, not ideal. I want your take on this, Anne, because to me, the most jarring thing about this collapse, because I've seen a lot of people talk about Andrew Burnett and being like, what is he doing? Like, we're sitting back, we're changing play. We're not being as aggressive. We kind of got off our game and, oh, look, it bit us in the butt. And it's all, I don't agree with that take, but I've seen it. Like, a lot of people are putting blame on Burnett. Here's the thing that's jarring to me about what happened at the end of game 4. Who was on the ice for the Nashville Predators? Roman Josi, Ryan McDonough, Ryan O'Reilly, Philip Forsberg, Gustav Nyquist. The guys that have won games for you all season long actively lost this game.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about just being on the ice and obviously like on both goals. There was just, and the game winning goal for Vancouver. You can point to just a positional breakdown by somebody on each. But even before that, you had Roman Josi absolutely botch a clear, and that led to, a Vancouver goal. You had Philip Forsberg absolutely botch a clear.
Yes.
And that led to Vancouver keeping possession, and that eventually led to the game tying goal. You had, watch the play on the Brock Besser tying goal, his hat trick goal. There are 3 Vancouver Canucks players in front of UC Saros, between UC Saros and the closest Preds defender. What are you doing? And this is the thing. When we brought in Ryan O'Reilly this past offseason, we brought in Ryan McDonough last summer. We talked about their cup experience. We talked about their awareness. We talked about their ability to stay composed and stay calm and win moments like this in games. And they were the ones that lost it. Like, they were the ones out-composed by a group of people that have played like a combined, I think it wound up being 7 playoff games in their entire career. And that was in 2020 in the bubble. So not even like a traditional playoff series. Like, you let a bunch of more or less first-time playoff people out compose you late in the game. That to me is the jarring thing. And, we talk about who's to blame here. Some people are like, well, coaching made some, decisions in late. And yeah, maybe they were a little bit lackadaisical. Maybe they took their foot off the gas a little bit there towards the end. But, man,
How do those
Like
guys not get it
Andrew
done?
Burnett put the guys you want on the ice in that situation on the ice. These are Nashville's big-time players, the players you are paying millions to win situations like this, and they were the ones that caused us to collapse.
Yeah. I think this game feels different for exactly the reason you're talking about. Because if this game was lost, and I say this with all due respect, with Tommy Novak, Luke Evangelista, and Mark Jankowski on the ice, or Spencer Stasny on the ice, who didn't play because he was injured. But I'm saying, if it were the young players who made a mistake at the end of that game, you could say, well, hey, look, Nashville, clearly they need some more experience in the playoffs. And while it would suck, it would feel like you were learning something about the direction the Nashville Predators need to go. When it is Yossi, McDonough, Forsberg, O'Reilly, when it is the guys that you, like you said, you're paying them to be clutch, and they were consistently unclutch, I think that's why this game is such a tough pill for Nashville to swallow, because those were your best guys, and they got torn apart. Now, there were a couple of defensive breakdowns, but you get paid to not make the defensive breakdowns. That was Nashville's, those were their best guys. Those were their veterans. Those were the guys that you pay the big bucks for. And it feels worse because it's not like Nashville can say, well, we sent out our retooling line. No, you didn't. And I agree with you. I think, say what you want about Andrew Burnett. I think he's been great coaching in this series, but man, the people on the ice when that went down, that's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting now to see if the Predators can rebound. And let's talk about that angle, Ann, because a lot of people are saying there's no way Nashville can recover from this, right? Like this is the end, right?
You're hearing a lot of that, yeah.
We will talk about whether or not we think this is the end or whether Nashville is going to pull off another amazing run. That's a big $1 million question that's going to affect the future of the franchise for sure. We'll get into that in just 1 second. But first here, we're going to pause a bit to talk a little bit more about Monopoly Go. I know we already talked about that off the top of the show, but guys, there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that will help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, and we are talking about tonight's Game 5 between the Nashville Predators and the Vancouver Canucks, taking place in Vancouver tonight. And $1 million question here. Are the Predators going to keep hope alive for one more day?
This is such a tough question. I've really wrestled with this, after Game 4, and I go back and forth. I do think they can. I do think that Nashville can get a win against Vancouver. It will certainly not be pretty. It will certainly not be a blowout. I just don't think this series has potential for Nashville to open up or keep like a 3-4 goal lead. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Do I think Nashville could bounce back from this? I do think they could. For a couple of reasons. I think that they have been in very similar situations before. I will tell you that the locker room felt eerily similar to that Dallas 9-2 loss. And then what happened after that? Nashville went on this run. Like they found a way to kind of dig deep and go on a run. Vancouver is a very good team. You can say what you want about Nashville. They choked, they did this. Vancouver's also a very good team. So I go back and forth because Vancouver is going to want to close this out. Look, these two teams don't want this series to go to 7 games because it's a physical series. I think that they are.
I think Nashville would like it to go to 7 games.
Well, at this point, they're going to have to. But I really think, Vancouver doesn't want this to go any longer than it has to. It's been a very, very physical series, especially for Quinn Hughes. I think that it has been a taxing series. This has really been, Andrew Burnett calls it muddy, but it's been like a very chess match type series where it's just not opened up. It's not just been goal scoring and good goaltending. Like there's been so many other factors that have played into which team has won or not won this series. So Vancouver's going to want to close it out at home. Vancouver wants this series to be over. They want a chunk of time to rest and recover before, the next series would start. So both of these teams are going into this game with a lot to prove. And we're going to find out about it. We're going to find out a lot about Nashville tonight. We're going to find out a lot about the Nashville Predators tonight. So to answer your question, I don't freaking know. Could they? Yes. Will they? I sure don't know.
Yeah. Worth answering.
What about you? How do you feel going into Game 5 with Nashville? I mean, do you feel like they can bounce back?
Here's my take, Anne, and we're both optimists, right? That's the kind of performance that is really hard to come back from.
Yeah.
You're throwing everything you have against the wall, and you're coming up short, and you have a win on your fingertips that just slips away. You're 6 seconds, Anne. 6 seconds from sending this back to Vancouver, tied 4-4. Can you imagine how different the vibe is if that happens, if they don't blow that lead? Huge. If we're going into tonight's Game 5 as a tied series where anything can happen?
Yeah.
But it just feels like that is an emotional loss for the Nashville Predators. And sometimes losses like that are really hard to come back from. And the other thing is, knowing Vancouver, knowing how good that team is,
right?
They're going back to a home crowd that is buck wild. We saw how crazy the Vancouver fan base is at home those first 2 games, an amazing atmosphere. They're now sensing that they have their chance to witness their first playoff series win in outside the bubble in, almost 10 years.
Yeah.
They're going to be on edge watching this.
Yeah.
They're going to be, every hit, every, wild shot on goal, they're going to be up and down. They, I think, can potentially make a difference in this game. And so that's why, to me, it's just so hard to say the Nashville Predators are going to survive this and get this game back to Smashville for Game 6. And the other thing is, as Alex Doherty pointed out, the Nashville Predators don't have a good record in elimination games in their history. And they also haven't won an elimination game since 2018. Game 6 against the Winnipeg Jets. They wound up losing that series. That was the last time they were facing elimination and won a game. It's been a while. But I will say this, though, Anne.
Mm-hmm.
It was around mid-season that we counted this team out. And then they hung in there. They started hanging in there, picked up some nice wins here and there. It was around February. They lost 9-2 to the Dallas Stars, and we were like, this team is finished.
Yeah.
Like the rebuild is coming. Like, we're going to see a lot of people traded at the deadline. Then they got points in 18 straight games. And they started getting rewarded for some of their good play that they had, semi-consistently throughout the season. I'm not counting this Nashville Predators team out just yet.
Yeah.
Everything in me, my gut, like the stats I see on paper, is telling me that Vancouver can wrap up the series tonight.
Yes.
But if there's a team to prove me wrong, it's this group of Nashville Predators. It's the team that played this year because they've already done it so many times. When we counted them out, they came right back in.
Yeah.
So, Ann, to answer your question, I mean, if there's a team to do it, it's us, right?
It looks hopeless. It feels hopeless. You look at what Vancouver brings to the table. You look at it being in Vancouver, kind of hopeless. But again, like you said, we've seen them do it before. Andrew Brunette and Ryan McDonough addressed the media yesterday morning before they boarded the plane for Vancouver. And they talked about this. They talked about the mentality and they talked about what they're facing in Vancouver. And I want to play this clip so you can hear from them where they stand on this game 5 situation.
Well, I think Sorovet's sketch, goldfish kind of mentality, and you go in and you had to win a game in there regardless, and you just go win one, and everything is, all the focus, all the effort is just about tomorrow night. Doesn't matter how you got here. This is playoff hockey. Things happen fast, things change fast, and let's change the narrative tomorrow.
Yeah, we've had our backs against the wall. I mean, we've been on the season there on the outside looking in and had to put together a good streak, and like I said, that gives us confidence. We know when we get to our game, we're tough to play against. Any team that we played against during the regular season that saw that, felt that, said that to the media after games. So we know we have that confidence in that type of game that we want to play, where we can dictate, be in the other team's face, not give up much. So it's just a matter of putting that effort one more time here and getting the result and closing it out.
I mean, they seem like they are in a reset. And like Ryan McDonough said, we've had our backs against the wall. And shout out to Andrew Brunette for the Ted Lasso reference. Be a goldfish. Be a goldfish.
Yeah. Be a goldfish. We'll see if they actually be goldfishes tonight, Ann. And we'll see if there is some magic left in the season after all. But first, let's talk about what the Predators actually need to do on the ice, besides just have good vibes, to make that happen. We'll have some keys to Game 5 coming up here in just 1 second.
First, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. It is, as we all know, playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, Ann. Nashville Predators take on the Vancouver Canucks tonight. Game 5 at Rogers Center. Rogers Center, right? Not Rogers Arena. Is it
Rogers Place? Rogers Corner?
There's like 3 arenas named Rogers.
The Rogers family must have really done a lot.
Yeah, they have their whole neighborhood now.
Yes.
And anyways, are the Nashville Predators going to win this game? And if so, what are the keys to help them do that?
Yeah, you know what? My first key is a throwback. Think back to the first 10 minutes or so of Game 1 in Vancouver. Vancouver came out absolutely bat poop crazy. I mean, Vancouver came out, they were hitting everything. They were really all over Nashville. And Nashville really had to just withstand that first 10 minutes. Nashville has to role reverse that in Game 5. Nashville has to come out in the first 10 minutes and play like Vancouver played in the first 10 minutes of Game 1. They need to be physical. They need to be fast. They need to find a way to put Vancouver on their heels, which is not something that we've really seen in this series. Even the game where Nashville won, Vancouver wasn't really on their heels. So that is what Nashville's going to need to do. And they're going to need to do it in the first 10 minutes of this game, because once Vancouver gets rolling, if Vancouver can get rolling early between that crowd and just the depth on Vancouver, it's going to be such a tough hill to climb out of. So for me, one of the keys is the first 10 minutes of the game. It's got to come with intensity. It's got to come with very good execution, physicality, and they've got to find a way to get Vancouver on their heels.
Yeah, it seems like this is one of those things where if the Preds go down 2-0, especially early, like that's it.
Yeah.
Like, hate to be the pessimist here, but that just seems like what's going to happen. Like Vancouver's not going to do that, especially the way this series has gone. So yeah, I'm with you. It's absolutely critical that the Predators get something going early, not just to take that crowd out of it, Anne, but just to set the tone, like just to get ahead and kind of build yourself a little bit of a cushion that you can play through. That's going to be the biggest thing for me. The other thing, Anne, is that I think this is a game in which the Nashville Predators' depth are going to win. We blasted the Predators' top line and Roman Josi and Ryan McDonough earlier this series. They're going to have to rebound as well. But for me, the Nashville Predators' depth is the X factor in this series. And it's kind of helps you when you have games this tight. The depth guys are the ones that typically step up and make the big plays. Right. And we just haven't seen that same sort of level of depth from some of the Nashville Predators' familiar faces this playoff series. We mentioned, in some previous shows, like Luke Evangelista is not getting the ice time he got at the end of the regular season. Same for Tommy Novak, who's played his fewest minutes of any game this year that he didn't get hurt in game 4. Michael McCarron just hasn't had that same impact. Cole Smith just hasn't had that same impact. Really the only depth guy that's really kind of consistently stepped up is Jason Zucker. But the Predators need more from their key guys, and they haven't been getting it so far. So, it feels like there could be some roster changes coming tonight. I know there's speculation that because Novak didn't really play at the end, maybe there's a Cody Glass appearance coming up. Maybe there's a Juuso Parssinen chance of getting back in the lineup. But whoever is in there for the Nashville Predators, I'm looking at those second, third, fourth lines as people who need to step up and have a big moment in this series.
Yeah. And that's where Vancouver has the advantage. When you look at these two teams, matching up, I mean, they have some other littler advantages, but really their big advantage is depth. But like you said, we haven't seen Nashville's depth players step up, and they have been the guys who have won some of these close games for Nashville at times. It will be interesting to see what Brunette does. Andrew Brunette tends to not want to tinker with his lineup, but I wonder in this situation whether he is going to go, hey, we're going to let it ride. We're going to dance with the girl we came with. Or whether he is going to say, you know what, we want to give Cody Glass a shot, or we want the physicality of Juuso Parssinen in there. I don't know. I'm going to be very interested to see what those lineup decisions are going to be for Brunette. The other thing that I think is going to be really important in this game, and it does not bode well for Nashville, but I think special teams. Because this is a game, my husband has said, Vancouver is going to blow it out. They're going to win by like 5-6 goals. And I'm like, I just don't know that I see this series, any games in this series really being a blowout. I just don't think, but that's where special teams is going to be so important, because Nashville's power play has been trash panda. It has been horrific. It has been ridiculously bad. Like, there just aren't enough adjectives, but you get one power play goal and that can swing the entire outcome of this game. You allow a Vancouver power play goal, that swings the entire outcome of this game. So I think special teams is going to be important. And friends, that gives me gastrointestinal distress, because we have not seen Nashville special teams. That power play has been just woof. I mean, it has been hideous. So if they can figure out the adjustments that they need to make to get to the inside and really pressure whoever is in goal, whether it is She Loves or whether it is DeSmith. We'll find out on the power play. That could be a difference maker, because I just think these are going to be close game. I think it's going to be another close game. So special teams, for the love of all that is good and holy, get it to the inside on the power play, or just, I don't know, bring it in and set it up in the zone. I'm just asking.
Yeah. Or, hey, if you also have a 2-goal lead with 2 minutes left, try to keep that.
Try to keep that.
I would advise trying to keep that.
Just throwing it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, Anne, like, not the best feeling about this game, but as we mentioned, this Nashville Predators season, anything can happen. So
Right.
we're going to have to see if the Nashville Predators have another miracle left in them.
Yeah. I'm not going to be surprised either way. This is a not surprised Anne game, one way or the other.
Yeah. Let's hope we're here tomorrow talking about the next game, the Nashville Predators. Anne, where can people find your work?
And you can find my work online at penaltyboxradio.com. You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at penaltyboxradio.com as well. Follow me on social media at _NSMorgan. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back tomorrow with recap from Game 5. We'll see you then.